Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session entitled Social Justice and Youth Empowerment. This is the second session of our Ready to Enhance Project Echo series from Ohio Adult Allies in partnership with the Ohio Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health Prevention and Promotion. This series is designed to equip adults supporting youth community leaders with tools and insights needed to effectively empower youth. Through our 5 monthly sessions, this series will address critical topics to enhance communication, foster supportive environments, and build cultural competency while promoting youth leadership and mental well-being. Together, these sessions provide a comprehensive framework for addressing the work of adult allies who seek to encourage youth empowerment. My name is April Schweinhart, and I have the pleasure of supporting this series. For some context, there are approximately 1,300 hubs over 200 countries running Echo sessions, and I am so proud that we are leveraging this model to bring an innovative prevention resource to people in Ohio. This Echo Hub is facilitated by team members from Ohio Adult Allies and the Ohio Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health Prevention and Promotion. You can visit each organizational website to learn more about the work using the QR codes on the screen. Both the Center and the Ohio Adult Allies initiatives are funded by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and administered by Ohio University's Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Service in partnership with the Pacific Institute of Research and Evaluation, or PIRE. So what is Project Echo? Whether you're new to the Echo model or have experienced one of the center's other Echo sessions, I think it's probably most important to understand the core philosophy of all teach, all learn. In each session, we will start with a subject matter expert providing a didactic on the identified topic, but what makes Echo so special and effective is the core value that everyone in the room has knowledge and experience to make a valuable contribution. And we can all learn from the work of our community members. Collectively, the wisdom is already in the room. And why the Echo model? Because some of the benefits are listed here. We won't spend too much time talking about this slide, but I wanted to highlight that this model democratizes information and expertise for the public good, builds workforce capacity, and ultimately improves outcomes for communities. Just some practical tips for today. Please mute your microphone when not speaking. I know it is close to lunchtime, but we would really appreciate if you could turn on your camera if possible. These sessions are really intended to build connections and relationships with our colleagues and people doing similar work. I encourage you to use the chat feature. Sophia has already graciously put links in there for us and will continue to do so throughout the session. Particularly if you want to share resources, that's also a great way to do it. But you can also type in the chat or unmute yourself to join the conversation. I'm so excited. We still have people joining. I'm continually letting people into the room. So we may need to use the raise hand function if you want to speak during this discussion portion of the section of today's session. Also, if anyone has the AI note takers, if you could turn those off, that would be greatly appreciated. Nancy Clough is our IT expert for today. So if you have any technology issues, please reach out to her. She's wonderful and has just put in the chat her email address for help. As a hub team, we are committed to creating an inclusive environment and providing all necessary accommodations. We will start all and end all sessions on time and work hard to make good use of your time by providing quality content. The only recorded part of our session, which we are recording currently, will be the didactic presentations, and this is out of respect for your privacy and the community members you serve. We will provide continuing education credits, which you can earn by completing the evaluation after each session. And you can recognize the Hub team by our white backgrounds with the Echo and Center of Excellence and Adult Allies logos. We ask for commitments from all participants as well to help us create a safe and respectful learning environment by valuing the opinions of others, using inclusive language, and protecting the privacy of everyone by keeping discussions confidential. We encourage you to be open in sharing your experiences because this is a supportive space. Finally, I'd like to remind you about the schedule for our upcoming sessions. The series will meet monthly on Tuesdays. And we have our Advanced Prevention Echo that meets every third Friday of the month. With that, I would like to introduce to you our presenter, Dr. Parissa Ballard. Dr. Ballard is an associate professor of family and community medicine in the Wake Forest School of Medicine. Her research focuses on understanding how young people engage with their communities, increasing equitable and meaningful opportunities for youth voice in communities, and understanding how youth engagement can improve community efforts and promote healthy youth development. In one current project funded by the National Institute of Drug Abuse, she applies ideas from developmental psychology to increase opportunities for youth voice in substance use prevention efforts. In another current project funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, she is co-leading a randomized controlled trial study to understand the effects of school-based action civics intervention. Outside of work, Parissa spends time exploring mountains, creeks, and playgrounds around North Carolina with her husband and 4 young kids. Welcome, Dr. Ballard. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, April. My slides look good. Yeah, I see some nods. Wonderful. All right. It's such an honor to be invited to be the subject matter expert in a room full of experts on working and partnering with young people. So thanks for having me today to talk about deepening youth-adult partnerships to improve prevention. My learning objectives for today, hopefully, I'm going to pitch to you 3 competencies that I think are really needed from adult allies to support meaningful youth engagement. Hopefully you'll leave with thinking, being able to identify 3 adultist practices and 3 practices that really support youth-adult partnerships. And then it's my hope that you can leave with identifying 1 next step that you and your organization could take to deepen youth-adult partnerships. So just to start with some definitions, I like to start with, I use the phrase youth engagement in my work, and that youth means a lot of things to a lot of people. I generally think about youth as young people between the ages of 11 and 25. Sometimes I even go up to 29. So it's a very broad definition. I use the term youth engagement to talk about an approach to prevention, research, and practice where members of the prevention workforce and researchers effectively engage youth as leaders or partners in planning, tailoring, implementing, and/or evaluating prevention programming. So I use the phrase youth engagement. I know Ohio Adult Allies use the phrase, I think, youth-led programming. I am not talking, when I talk about youth engagement, I don't mean delivering a curriculum or a program to young people. I think some curriculum and programs exist that are great, but that's kind of not what I'm talking about, right? Going to youth and delivering something. I'm talking about partnering with young people in a really meaningful way to make the work that we do better. I had the pleasure of interviewing 21 members of the prevention workforce across North Carolina about youth engagement. Like, what is their understanding? What are they doing in this area of youth engagement? And one person said, I very much think the most effective projects we've ever had in prevention have been those community involvement, service learning, youth-led initiatives, but they're hard to do. And that just sums it up for me in one quote. Like, we really value this. We know this is so important and helpful. It's just really hard to do. So that series of formative research we did a few years ago led our team to create this guide. And this is really meant for the prevention workforce in North Carolina, part of an information guide series that was funded by the State Department of Health and Human Services. I just wanted to share it as a resource. It's a little more intro, so it might be that the people in this room already are really doing youth engagement, but it also shares some further resources about engaging young people in prevention. I really am going to skip through this slide about the benefits of youth engagement, assuming that everybody in the room here really understands that youth engagement, by the definition of really partnering with young people, is meant to increase the relevance, the reach, the uptake, the responsiveness of our work to young people, to gain insights on youth culture, to really provide opportunities. So while we're partnering with youth to improve prevention, we're also providing something to young people, an empowering opportunity to contribute meaningfully to their community, and also to build capacity, right? We're building young people's skills, partnerships, and networks, and hopefully the prevention workforce pipeline. This is just one way to think about youth engagement. This is from the information guide that I shared. You can think about levels or types or models of youth engagement in a lot of ways. This is a way that my team and I kind of like to visually think about different kind of ways that you can, models that you can kind of partner with young people. Again, I'm pretty sure people in this Zoom room today are at kind of the top of the ladder in terms of trying to really do youth-led work. So kind of being adult allies, meaning supporting youth-led programming and prevention in your work. So with that background, what I really want to talk about today is this is a paper we published that is also available, should be free and publicly available. If not, I'll be happy to share it. But we kind of wrote a call to action for members of the prevention workforce to kind of practice youth engagement and do youth partnered research when it comes to prevention. And in this paper, we really pitched these three competencies that my team and I really think are needed among us, considering us here the adult allies. So what do we need to do to really effectively partner with young people? I would argue one is really understanding adolescent development. So I'm a developmental psychologist by background, and I think that I meet so many adults who think, I have no background in adolescent development. I don't know like the developmental stages or what they're going through or what their needs are. And to me, that's such a missed opportunity because when we really understand adolescent development, I think we can better partner with and support young people. So adolescent development across key domains: physical development, emotional, social, cognitive, spiritual, civic, and identity development. And I think that informs the core elements of youth adult partnership. So when we really understand what adolescents are going through, then we can engage in youth adult partnerships, meaning authentic decision making with young people, natural mentorship, reciprocal activity, community connectedness. So the second core competency that my team and I really are arguing that we need is then applying this understanding of adolescent development and youth adult partnerships to really designing effective youth adult meetings and materials and programs that best serve young people. And the third key competency I think is really needed is then implementing those relational practices to enable authentic collaboration between youth and adults. And I'm going to hopefully offer a resource on each of these three key competencies that you might find useful and that can serve as one-pagers for you to take back to your organizations or even the young people you work with in each of these three areas. Okay, the first area, and I would love if people want to engage in the chat, I would love to know, what is your background in adolescent development? Is that something as part of your training and prevention that you've had classes or training or workshops, and do you feel like you have a good grasp of adolescent development? So I invite you to participate in the chat if you'd like. So this is a resource that is from UCLA, the Center for the Developing Adolescent, and I really like the work that they put out. So if nothing else, if you haven't heard of it or used it, I really encourage you to engage with UCLA Center for the Developing Adolescent. They have a lot of really helpful resources and handouts and things about adolescent development. I really like this one. So this is how UCLA looks at adolescents' developmental needs. So adolescents really have a need for safe and satisfying ways to explore the world around them, right? Healthy risk taking. Young people need to take risks. And I think there's some thought that if we can provide safe, scaffolded ways to take risks, maybe we can discourage risk taking that's less healthy and encourage young people to take risks in their environments. They need real world scenarios that they can build their decision making and emotion regulation skills. And I think a lot of that can be provided through our youth adult partnerships, through our work with young people. They need avenues to develop a sense of meaning and purpose. So really authentically contributing to the world around them, to peers, families, and communities. Another developmental need of adolescents is really positive ways to earn respect. So for young people, right, being respected and having social status is incredibly powerful. Experiences that help define their personal values and goals and sense of identity. And then, of course, warmth and support from parents and other caring adults. And I like to think us in the room try to be those caring adults that can provide that for young people. So that's a very quick summary of a handout I really like on key developmental needs of adolescents. Okay, here's another one-pager that I really like. And if you haven't seen it before or thought about it, I hope this gives you a new way to think about the practice of working with young people. This is from my colleague, Heather Kennedy. She's out of Colorado, and she does great work in the area of thinking about adultism. In other words, the kind of biases we adults tend to have against young people. A lot of them are subconscious or unconscious. Hopefully, those of us in the room are trying to train ourselves out of some of our adultism. But what Heather Kennedy did was observed a whole lot of adult programs that are meant to partner with youth and observed what she categorized as 7 adultist practices that are quite common in youth adult work. I don't have time today to go into all of these, but I thought I would just read through the 7 practices and do a couple examples and invite you to really reflect in the chat, if you feel like, on which of these do you do or have you seen? Because all of us, no matter how good our intentions are, I think probably see these practices in ourselves a little bit. So the first one that Heather Kennedy talks about is policing. So kind of adults telling young people how they can talk, speak, dress, just kind of monitoring closely what young people are doing. The second is lecturing. Disengaging is the third one. And I think this one's really interesting. An example that she gives is adults maybe saying to a group of people, okay, we just have to get, this might be a little boring. It might be a little technical. We just have to get through it and then we'll do the fun stuff. Right. And adults do that a lot, I think, especially in schools, but just kind of like dismiss what we're about to do and then we'll get to fun stuff, which can just set up a dynamic for young people to disengage, to think, well, then why should we do it? Kind of it minimizes the work that we're doing together. Another one is more physical, obvious separation of youth and adults, right? You have maybe youth standing over here in the meeting and or the young people are supposed to be here and the adults stand here but don't sit together, like, chairs arranged in a circle, right? So like obviously physically separating youth and adults. Giving incomplete instruction, in other words, setting up an activity without fully preparing young people for what they're about to do, and then feeling like, oh, well, that didn't go well, it's their fault. But really, maybe adults haven't fully set up an activity. Excluding youth, like having strict policies if you can't enter, if you're late, and also making negative comments to young people. So these are 7 practices that Dr. Heather Kennedy really calls adultist practices. And to me, these are such an invitation to reflect on what our meetings and our interactions really look like. I think my kids would say I am prone towards lecturing sometimes, and I can do that. I can hear myself lecturing, or just kind of a young person might say something and I might rephrase it in a way, and I have to think to myself, I don't need to be rephrasing what they're saying. Like, why am I talking? So I really like these 7 adultist practices and invite people to consider where they might use them or see them happening. This resource is also from Dr. Heather Kennedy, but this is, I think, a really helpful one for then what are some positive practices for working with youth? So practices that support genuine youth-adult collaboration. And this, again, goes back to that third thing that I think us adult allies really need, which are to utilize key relational practices in our work with young people. So Dr. Kennedy talks about facilitating with intention. So doing some of the things we do in our adult-only work, having agendas and setting those ahead of time, making sure we're connecting what we're doing in every meeting to what we did in the last meeting. Letting youth lead. So maybe with day-to-day decisions and voting on activities or what we're doing, but also bigger project goals. Acknowledging power. So here's where come our identities, bringing in our identities that we bring into a room with young people, acknowledging power we may have as adults or whatever our identity positions are, acknowledging young people's identities that they bring into the work. Another practice, working together. So not only doing the work of the meeting together, but also setting up the room together, cleaning up together, really making, the youth and adult partnership clear in every aspect of the work. Learning to let go, of course, is an incredibly challenging one, that letting go of power, to really share power with young people. Engaging in dialogue, I just want to highlight celebrating accomplishments. I think this is a really powerful one. Showing up for young people for what's important to them, right? Maybe acknowledging birthdays, or if one of your young people in your coalition has an important sporting event, could you be there? Could you encourage anyone else in the group to be there? Just kind of showing up and honoring what's important to young people. So this is meant to be a 1-pager. I know this is a really quick presentation without time to go deeply into it, but again, I invite you to look at these practices and think, are there any ones of these that I could use to deepen and enhance my partnership work with young people? These are several more resources that maybe you've seen, but if not, I would recommend the Hub for Justice-Centered Youth Engagement and Uprise. Heather Kennedy's work is highlighted there. And the YPAR Hub, that's Youth Participatory Action Research. They have a lot of curricula on the website and a lot of great resources for doing youth-led and youth-partnered action research work. I'm going to breeze through common issues that arise with youth engagement. Again, thinking that everyone in the room has probably been through a lot of these, how hard power sharing is, the logistical barriers we were talking about earlier on the call about transportation, funding, time. And also, I think there's a lot of challenges in this current moment that we're in our youth partnered work. I think I only have 1 minute left, so I'm hopefully on time here, April. So this session hopefully is inviting you to consider what are the challenges you're facing with youth partnered work in this moment, and what is one next step that I or my organization can take to further my partnership with youth. Maybe it's thinking about reflecting on adultist practices within your organization or your work, or thinking about those supportive youth adult practices that you can bring to a meeting. Maybe you're already doing them, but maybe there's one that you are not. So with that, I think I am within my 15 minutes, and I thank you so much again for having me and look forward to discussion with everybody.